Hello and welcome to ADC Live. My name is Misha, and today we have a very special day because first of all, I want to say that we're going to miss Ivo today. Ivo unfortunately is not here. I was not here last week. He was not here this week, so we're going to take in turns taking off. But Ivo will miss you in case you're tuning in, and hopefully you'll be here with us next time. So, big agenda for today. Pro tips of the week about spaces, what we're excited about regarding spaces. We'll talk about spaces, features, overviews, migration, live, space use cases, and of course, we'd love to hear your feedback. First of all, today is April 15th. Those of you who are tuning in from the North American hemisphere, remember that taxes are due today. So I hope you haven't forgotten. In case you did, which I hope you didn't, make sure that that's taken care of because Uncle Sam is watching. So, pro tip of the week, as everybody knows or has heard about, or if you don't know, obviously you will know, you should know that communities are being phased out, and as of March 4th, that sunsetting has already begun, and users essentially are directed to use spaces and features of spaces more and more. Anybody who's using sites that have legacy communities already in them, admins will be essentially are already informed that spaces are going to be phased out and are encouraged to use communities as you see here. If you're an admin of a site that has communities already and you create a new community, you get this pop-up that says, hey, community is going to be phased out. And we'll talk about what that means exactly in a short bit. But everybody is encouraged to create spaces, and there's a very good reason for that. So let's go forward. What we're excited about regarding spaces. So there's a lot of things to be excited about, but one of the things we're personally excited about from a content experience perspective and kind of knowledge management perspective is that spaces are going to have this new cool feature but that's called pages, creating custom pages in spaces where you can customize a layout within the confines of a space. So you can have a consistent experience. You have the consistent banner, consistent navigation, right? And you have obviously the space homepage and other services that we'll look into from spaces. But in addition to that, sometime shortly later this year, hopefully within by H1 or maybe Q3, at some point, we will see some hopefully exciting news about this. This is just a mock-up. Obviously, it's not to scale, just as an idea. But Spaces will have these pages where you can add widgets, add customized experiences, customized layouts, and we're very excited to hear more about it. Obviously, with these custom pages, governance and access controls for the space are all kind of blanketed within the space. So we create a new page. There's another space that's all kind of falling into the governance part of the space itself. So you don't have to worry about creating new groups, creating new roles, all that mess that everybody knows about already. That's going to hopefully disappear. And the consistency in navigation, building out navigations, adding all the sub pages within one navigation layer or multiple navigation layers really adds a lot of value. So it's something we're excited about, looking forward to learning more about it. We just wanted to kind of build some excitement from you guys as well. So spaces versus communities, and this is the first part of this ADC Live webinar is really going to go more into the kind of nuts and bolts, features, why are we transitioning from communities into spaces. By the way, a little bit of history here, a piece of history. So LumApps communities, Ellie will keep me honest, but they started in 2018. So communities obviously have evolved since then, but they are very old. They have conformed to the older kind of structures, and that's why a lot of the newer things that spaces have been designed for, communities will not cover. So let's talk about why spaces are better. So first of all, the product team says that spaces represent a major evolution in the communities through delivering richer engagement, stronger governance, consistency, right? More structured employee experience, a structured content, right? And we'll see that over the course of this presentation. So here's a slide that we actually took from the Hive. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a lap over of my text over. Let me just fix that over here. just so we can, okay, there it is, a little bit clearer. So I'm fixing live. So here we have this slide that was put together on the Hive that we kind of snatched to put into here, just so we kind of use that as a reference point. So why communities, what communities don't have the spaces do now have or will have, right? Here's like a list of all these features. So first of all, as part of this evolution, just to kind of level set, during the 8th release, by the end of the year, which is slated right now, December 2nd, might change, but that's what the documentation currently says on the site. Spaces, sorry, communities will officially be phased out. There will be sunset. So what that means exactly is very, very important. Communities can no longer be created, right? So even if you have a legacy site that we just mentioned before that has communities, you won't be able to create communities any longer. If you go to that space to create, you might not even have the create button, or most likely what will happen is if there's a create, it'll prompt you to create a new space instead of a community. So no more creation of communities since then, since that point onwards. Existing communities cannot be edited, so you can't go into edit mode. And right now, really, the experience isn't great anyway, not as clean as it is in Spaces. But you won't be able to go into edit mode with communities. You can't edit the layouts. You could see content. You could go into content that's read only. Obviously, folks can interact, engage with posts, uh, uh, but essentially, from an editor perspective, communities will be read only from December 2nd, or whenever that R8 date will be onwards. So very, very important. They're not going away. They're not going to be disappeared. They're not going to, be deleted. They're still there, and that's why Linux is giving it plenty of time to have that change management internally and that transition. Period. So let's go through some of these features in a little bit more detail that are listed on the slide. So first of all, spaces definitely have much more advanced features, as we'll see in the coming slides. Rich pages we discussed, drafts and scheduling. We have the categorization with metadata. We have a lot of navigation customizations, and a lot of other features that are coming here, which are very exciting. Polls, which will be in spaces, and then offline mode, which is very, very interesting as well. And obviously any kind of AI moderation that's coming as well. So a lot of good reasons to use spaces, revert to spaces, and start thinking about spaces more and more in this transitional period in LumApps. So why spaces are better? So first of all, something I personally am excited about was in the past couple of releases ago, I think this was towards the end of 2025, LumApps has announced that you can categorize spaces, you can add metadata to spaces, which is really great. Before you couldn't, a little bit of a pain point, but now this pain point has been solved. And there are obviously some caveats we'll talk about a little bit later, but point being is that now if you go to edit metadata category, you edit the metadata, you can actually find a new box here called spaces, and you can activate that metadata for spaces. So what that means is when you go to a space, in the space management, in fact, let's take a look at that right now since we're talking about it. So if we go to a space here, let's choose any space. Okay, let's say this one, and we'll go to settings. So first of all, in space in presentations, so I have in the bottom, I have this metadata selector. No values have been selected, but now I could choose location or destination. Let's say I want to choose people team for this one. This is about learning. Okay, and then I'll save it. Okay, and then in the backend, if you go to metadata, so here, this is where you can control how to map, how to configure, and set up metadata for spaces. Pretty straightforward. But let's say, for example, you have destinations, news type, locations. I think these are all already set up for spaces. But here, if I want to edit, you can scroll down. You see spaces are engaged, and you can do the same thing for anywhere else. certification, let's say, you can add that as well, but that's not obviously not relevant for spaces. So that's kind of how you do it. And the cool thing is, going back to the slide, I don't want to go through through all the new page creations, but the point is that, as you can see here, if you're setting up a community list page, which really I'm sure LumApps is going to rename this to space list at some point towards the end of the year, once spaces are fully migrated. So this new community space list widget, you can now listen and filter on the spaces based on metadata categories which are selected. Very useful, great. This isn't just good for organizing spaces on the front end, but also it helps improving knowledge management. Before, the structured content and spaces were a little bit was not as clean because spaces themselves didn't have a way to be mapped to something besides the site, right? And obviously you have posts which have categories and articles which don't. But essentially now you can categorize spaces by metadata, and you can further kind of improve the knowledge structure. And right now everybody talks about AI, and we know that how all the code, the co-work, all the improvements that are there are tremendously changing the whole industry. But regardless, right, structured data is extremely important, and this really adds to that layer of structured data when it's with the metadata, LumApps metadata map to spaces. So highly recommended to use this feature if you haven't already. If you have hundreds of spaces, think about what types of spaces they are, team, location, event, whatever, and map those accordingly. Post scheduling, very good feature. Tracy spoke about this, just to echo what she said in case you missed it, on tips and tricks. She has a good video. I think she pushed it out on through the Hive earlier this week or maybe last week, I can't remember. But very nice video, just kind of shows how to do it. It's very, very simple. You go to post, publish content, just like in Google, or just like other tools. You go publish, choose custom date or pre-selected date, and very, very straightforward, very useful. Obviously, a good simple feature that's there in spaces, not in communities. You also have customization for the space navigation, which is really useful. We'll see that as well. But you can customize everything from the homepage of the space to any of the services or service areas. The events, the documents, Drive, etc. Right? You can customize all those labels. We'll see that as well. Documents, a great feature in spaces where you can add documents, media into a space that's going to be visible and accessible by folks who have that space access. Good for teams, and very good for just kind of local dedicated search within that space to have like a clean, easy way to navigate through documents in spaces. So we'll see it a little bit later as well. And there's a lot more features. We'll cover some. We'll see how far we get today. But as a reference, all the updates related to spaces are on this page called all about powerful collaboration on your platform. This is the Hive page right here. We can click it and see. Search for spaces, powerful collab on your platform, and you'll see all this information here and more. Obviously, there's reference to the All About Spaces community, latest post. Here is the slide table that we used for the presentation, just for reference sake, if you want to take a look at it a little bit closer. And that's it for the features overview for the spaces. There's obviously more features, and we'll go through those as we do a live. We jump into the live session. First, I want to go into the migration and migrating communities to spaces. So we all heard about it, we all seen it, and now let's do it. It's very, very simple, very straight. LumApps makes it extremely simple to do. We've tested it out, given some feedback, but it seems like a very, very good, easy, straightforward process. And so here, let's do it live together. So let's go to communities, and we'll go to communities here. So see, already you have the warning that says communities being deprecated. right? Learn more, etc. And by the way, new community, that's where you get the pop-up, right? I'm sure after December 2nd, either this button will go away or there'll be some kind of a call to action that drives you to spaces, create a new space. Maybe that, but whatever one decides, that's obviously in their wheelhouse. So here, let's say you want to migrate a community to a space. Very simple. You click on this vertical pagination dot, it opens up. So first cool thing, before you operate, it actually preview as a space. So I click it, and look at this. It gives you a pop-up, and you can look and see what if there's a cover image. It'll show you what that. In fact, let's find a different one that has a cover image here. Preview. So here you have a cover image. If you what it looked like this or like this, right? Very nice, very clean. And then you can kind of click through the preview here to see what the space preview will look like. So let me actually go. We have a few targets. We've copied through JSON several space communities, so we can do for this exercise. So here we preview. You can see it, the home page, the post page, and then we can upgrade to a space. So here's what it looks like. There's going to be a little bit of layout work to do, but it's very simple. I mean, it didn't take me more than, so I'm going to do upgrade is irreversible, which is totally fine. And remember, very important, it doesn't delete. The main thing is it doesn't delete any data. It doesn't delete any of the knowledge, any of the posts, any of the articles, events, etc. that you have, right? It simply just migrates it into space experience. All the content still is there, all your posts, uh, and all the information still exists and will continue to exist as it has been in the past. So let's do upgrade. Now it's been upgraded. Let's go to the help community for migration test. And here, so here it is. Now it's a space. I have my very nice, simple space navigation here. I have the space buttons. Now here on the left side, I still have the old follow button. That's the metadata widget. I have my old calendar that I set up. I did manual experiments. Do some things here, right? So now it's just going to be a simple, and you have the navigation widget here, which LumApps released for geeks like me to kind of go and test out the navigation, the community navigation experience a few years ago. So now it's very simple. Now that I'm in the space, and by the way, just a quick, if I go back to, let's just duplicate this. If I go back to communities here, right, if I open up one of the communities, you notice there's no like you don't have the contextual actions, right? So the experience is really almost like counterintuitive. So I have to go here, edit layouts, right? All these kind of things. So this is the button that's going to go away for communities after December 2nd sunset. And going back to the actual community, so here a little bit of duplication, which is fine because spaces kind of come baked in with the title in it. So we go edit, edit page. And very simply, I'm not going to go through everything because very straightforward, but we'll just delete this. And then I have a whole bunch of things here. These are all the widgets, featured image, etc. So maybe I want to keep some things, not everything. So let's say you just go kind of one by one, clean this up, clean this up. In fact, what I want to do is I want to put my, I would like to put the second, this gets a little bit tricky. So we want to put, oh, there it is. So I want to put my meet the team on the right side, which is what I usually like to do. Maybe I'll keep the calendar here, just the HTML embed. It's nice little kind of option, but not really necessary. Here, I can just go delete this whole thing here because I no longer need it, right? Delete the whole cell. 1 second, just make sure I'm deleting the right thing. Delete the whole cell. Okay, then with navigation no longer needed because we have it natively here. Go ahead, delete. Very simple. And now I'll just need to do a little bit of noodling around with this layout here like this. And essentially within a few minutes, it's very clean, very simple with a few clicks. You have now a space with all your content and with the layout that you had before. So very straightforward process, low hanging fruit, pretty much risk free, and highly suggested to get this started. Okay, I'm going to check and see if there's any questions because we are live and sometimes we do have questions. Okay, doesn't look like there's any questions here yet. Okay, so next, let's go back to our presentation. And so let's take a close look at some of use cases that we have for spaces. There's only a couple that we put together. Obviously, there's like a limitless amount of use cases. So one is a Q&A support. Spaces are really nice, a good way for either for tech or product or location-based areas to kind of come in, collect knowledge, ask questions, collect those questions, provide the answers, and folks to kind of have a central place for these type of experiences. Now, again, you might say, well, now with with Claude, all these different AI tools, like why do we need a space for all this? Because I should go to AI and ask the question, let it collect information. That's true, but you have to remember there's a lot of hallucination, a lot of hallucination. And a lot of enterprises don't trust AI for that very same reason to provide the answers. You can trust it to do certain things for you, to do technical tasks, for workflows, right? But providing correct answers is not a simple thing. Most organizations do not trust it. So why this is beneficial, why Q&A support space is beneficial, because all the knowledge is collected here, and the questions that are being asked, they're answered here. So therefore, if you do have an AI tool and you do want it to collect this type of data, that and use this as a data source, it's always best to configure it in such a way that it only uses specific type of uh, posts which have already, for example, been answered, right? Or you can create certain rules around it, or within certain communities. Now you have metadata for communities. So in this case, a Q&A support space, if you want to feed that information to the AI, you feed it only answered with posts that have answered questions, and questions that are answered, obviously, it's assumed they're moderated, the answers are accurate, and if that's the case, you can feed it to the AI model, which will provide a much more accurate knowledge base. So this is very, very useful for that. Obviously, for location-based spaces, or for support for teams, you can keep track of how many unanswered questions there are. We'll show it in a second. And essentially kind of make this as a single source of truth. So here, if I go back to go out of here, here's the space. So here we have a space has 4 unanswered questions, right? And you have here the unanswered questions so far, and here we have answered questions that we have so far, right? So it's a very nice, clean way for folks come in, ask questions, provide answers, and you see how many unanswered questions there are. So in this widget, by the way, you can restrict it only to moderators, right? So not everybody needs to see it. And moderators can come in and say, hey, there's 4 unanswered questions in this space. Who's accountable for answering those? You can map this widget to this space or to a collection of Q&A support spaces throughout a site, right? And this way, somebody moderates and makes sure things are answered. If they aren't, somebody gets pinged, and essentially add to the knowledge base, so accurate responses can be used and can be fed to an intelligent model for quicker consumption later. This unanswered questions widget is our widget that we built personally. It's not a LumApps widget, but there is a LumApps extension. So if you are interested in the unanswered questions widget, let us know. Another use case that we have is for events, like a team space for events or shout outs. It's also a nice kind of a different way of thinking about it. So this is like a more designed, more kind of imagined art of the possible type of a space. And this is where you can kind of, a lot of things really are in the space already. You don't necessarily need to have all these things in the space, but essentially having a space that where you can where teams can create announcements, right? There's everybody knows this is the area to go to consume and collect and get insights, get information, get the latest about roadmaps or about updates or about events, strategies, right? Or team building and strengthening the bonds by giving shout outs. If folks know this is the place to go, they'll go. Now, again, you might be asking, what about AI, right? AI is really taking over, and folks aren't there to really noodle around. They just want to get stuff done quicker, faster, etc. Like, why do you need to go to a space like this? Like, just simply ask a question. Well, that's true, but at the same, there's no contradiction because at the same time, people still need to consume, understand what's going on around them. There's still a cultural aspect, a cultural element to it, right? And really a sense of awareness of who's being recognized for what, or what's being announced, what's going on in the world, the company, right? And so there's still a very high need for personalization in that regard, for building cultural and alignment and building within that regard. And that's not really going to go away as long as human beings are around and they're working. That's definitely not going to go away. And so this is essentially an example of this kind of a space. So here you have some images. In fact, let me go out of here to show what the space looks like live. So here's the example of the space. We have, as you kind of scroll through, this has a like a parallax effect that will be applied to it. So here's an event gallery. Obviously, Bright is coming up. This should be an exciting event. So here you have the Bright, some of the schedules you can put in for the gallery, some videos, any kind of. This is an example of shout outs. So here we see a lot of spaces. We build a lot of spaces for teams, and we try to encourage some kind of a element like this that gets folks engaged and gets them coming back with shout outs. Now, cool thing here is we have a give shout out button, so somebody can just come into this place, click the button, it opens up the widget, right? Let's say I want to give Evo a shout out real quick, and what I'll do is I'll put the shout out here, and just have a pre-made message already just for this demo. I'll publish it, and then the shout out is going to appear in this widget. So huge shout out to Evo, right there it is. And all it was just a simple click, right? Now, of course, Spaces do have the create button, but the create button, it's you have to create, then choose, right? Choose the post, um, and it's there's a lot of other features here. But if you wanted a simple experience, just to give shout outs for something, we have a button specifically designed for this to make it very quick, very simple. In fact, this button can be attached to home pages as well, not just Spaces. So it's very extensible throughout any area of LumApps, not just confined to a space. So this is a good example, good use case of spaces, event spaces. You have obviously announcements here, but you have dynamic contents coming from announcements and shout outs, upcoming events related to this specific event. And here, obviously, we added a little bit more customization with a custom footer for the space, just to kind of give an idea, things that you can do, right? And then keeping the look consistent here. So you go to shoutouts, you see all the shoutouts here as well. We have this consistency as well throughout. LumApps is a custom script that we wrote specifically to keep this space consistency there. And this just makes a nice, more pleasant experience for this team. Now there's a lot more to cover. We have obviously the space settings. We have more services, like we're not going to get to it now, but you have documents, for example, or Drive, which you can add. And as you add these will appear in this navigation. You can customize the labels very simply, which is really nice, right? So I have documents. If I want to customize the documents to be something like docs or docs, let's say I want to do it, that's really something you can do. And documents are a nice way of adding things, media files, PDFs, really anything that you have. Let's see, I want to add some bright contents here. So you can add those here. You can search for it. It's a very nice add-on, specifically for teams to be autonomous, to have one place to put documents into. You can also add a drive, not a problem. Uh, but with drives, the search experience is worse. Inside the space, you can only search the folder. You can't search the entire drive. This keeps it a little bit more contained, and the experience is better from a search perspective. Okay, we are at time. So I want to, time went by very, very fast. I want to first thank you all for your time. Your feedback obviously really does matter. If you have questions, if you want to add topics to our agenda, please let us know. We have our, as I've been saying before, our partner, Space and ADC. You can come here, take the survey, give us a shout out, and tell us what you'd like to know, learn more about. Maybe you'd like to come on ADC Live and tell us your story. That'll be great. And finally, what's next? So we do have a very exciting ADC Live event coming up in May, because the end of April is going to be bright, so we're going to take off for that. But becoming a beekeeper developer, we have developed a first LumApps beekeeper app by ADC. And so we are going to be talking about beekeeper and development and applications and LumApps, and show you a few demos, which is a really cool event. And then and after that, we'll set up more events, but we're going to say goodbye to our streaming tool today, which is StreamYard. They served us very well, but we're going to be moving to a different live stream solution for LinkedIn, which will not impact our ADC Live events, but there might be some changes, hopefully for the better coming. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Enjoy your bright experience. Bye.